Hey, what's up? This is Udulena from Udulena Digital. Welcome to my channel. Today is Sunday, it's time for another video. Sorry for the small delay. The last few weeks I was away and I took some creative break in order to focus a little bit more on what I want to do for the channel to grow and to continue further. So from now on, every Sunday, continue as the old schedule. Every Sunday there will be a new video. For those of you who are new here, please sure to subscribe and make sure you check out the other videos. We have a lot of book reviews, tips on how to run Facebook ads, Google ads. I work for Google, I'm a Googler, but everything that I share here is my own personal opinion and view of things. Having said that, today I'm going to talk about a very Google related, very googly, so to say, topic and book. I'm going to review a book by Doerr called Measure What Matters. Doerr is one of the early investors of Google. He actually starts the story of the book with the time when he met Larry and Sergey, the founders of Google, Larry Page and Sergey Brin, and he introduced to them OKRs, objectives and key results. And the whole book is about OKRs, what are OKRs, and he calls it the simple idea that drives 10x growth. Interestingly, OKRs are adopted by a lot of companies, but at Google they really found their home. I had heard about OKRs. There is another book about how Google works. I really recommend this one for those of you who want to learn more about Google and its culture. But OKRs were still something I never really truly understood. And funny enough, sorry, I hope my managers are not watching this, but I really understood what OKRs are from this book. The book has a lot of examples. I think that's what it makes it very valuable, and it's really great resource for someone who is a manager of a team, who is working on their own organization or startup and is prepared to have more flexible way of work. I know several companies that I work with as a Googler, and they adopted OKRs themselves because they saw how well they worked. They read the book and they're super happy with it. So what these OKRs are is an acronym for objectives and key results. In Google there's a lot of acronyms, and what this stands for is really what you want to achieve in a company and how you're going to do it. So the objective is what you want to focus on. This has to be something realistic but a little bit stretched, still achievable but ambitious. Let's say a number or some kind of goal that you have. It has to be tangible, it has to be clear, not ambiguous, and you have to be sure whether it is achieved or not. So you have to have like a real output. Is it done or is it not done at the end of the period? Typically, you set up OKRs for every quarter, and that's one of the biggest difference which Doerr introduced. He found this from Intel, where he started his career. He talks a little bit about the 70s, the beginning of computers and personal computers, microprocessors. So he was a salesman, he was product manager, a variety of roles, and then he settled on investing and venture capitalism. In Intel, he had another very iconic manager, Andy Grover. He also has a lot of books, and Intel has been long been the example of a tech company, like a standard for management and agile management. So in Intel, they realized that for tech company and generally for volatile products and markets, it's very difficult to have annual objectives. It's just such a long period. Also, when it comes to annual performance review, 1 year is way too long. And things change so quickly in terms of competitions arriving, in terms of changes of regulations and everything. So they introduced quarterly OKRs. Also, a big difference from the rest of the corporate world is that OKRs are publicly available in the whole company. I mean, from the bottom to the top, you know what the OKRs of the Sundar Pichai, who is the CEO of Google at the moment, his employees, like all the senior managers, including up to your manager, and of course your own OKRs. Everybody in the company has OKRs. What's great is also that you set up some of the objectives yourself. So you decide how much, what your objective has to be. Of course, you negotiate this with your manager. I mean, you agree on what the OKRs should be, what makes sense, and you are responsible on executing them. So what's very interesting is about OKRs is that they are very flexible. They can be changed also in cycle. They're elastic and they help companies act fast. I think that's what's the key word here is when things are happening quickly in this world, when there is a need to react so quickly, the organization can get aligned very, very quickly. And they can be very good collaboration between different departments. They are not so siloed because they know what the goals are, they know what the top goal is, and they're all working together to achieve it. There is no complicated approvals, there is no complicated processes. Actually, someone from Motorola joked that by the time that Intel came up with a new solution, they couldn't even get his flight approved to visit another location. This is what it means in the fast-growing world of technology, this kind of elasticity that OKRs are doing. So, how to set up good OKRs? This is a very difficult task, and I think this is a really piece of art that managers, not every manager is really capable of doing that very well. It has to be very well thought. And I think it's important to have a group process, like a group of managers discussing the OKRs together. One thing to have in mind when setting up OKRs is whether this objective is actually bringing something good for the company. You can have an objective which sounds good, but you have to consider, will this objective drive the right behaviors? One example of a bad OKR is Ford. When they were faced with a lot of competition from Japanese car brands that had very cheap economic cars, they put a target, an OKR, to create a car under $2,000. They executed the target, but the car was this Ford Pinto, which was a very dangerous car. It caused a lot of deaths, a terrible reputation for Ford, and really did much more damage than they were facing actually from the competition before. So it's very important to set up OKR which is meaningful and which will drive the right behavior. So let's say if in a sales organization the OKR is to drive more sales, maybe you should think on improving the leads rather than just having the same resources as before and just pushing the salespeople to close more sales. So it has to be thought on different angles and different teams have to be involved. OKRs are cross-functional and cross-team, and this is what makes it work. When there is a goal for the company, there's different OKRs for the engineering, for the marketing, for the sales, where every team has an OKR contribution which was bringing to the common goal. Another bad example of OKR is an OKR which actually doesn't help much. There are OKRs that are, let's say, you have an app that is loading in 3 seconds and you want it to load in 2 seconds. Well, this might be actually very beneficial, but you have to prove with data whether this actually makes sense and whether it will be meaningful. Because having a goal, it takes a lot of resources, it takes a lot of energy, and if it's going to only improve slightly bit the performance and the app can have like pretty much negligible difference before and after, then there is no point to push so much resources on such an OKR. This is another example also when it comes to OKRs. They have to be designed so that they are achievable and that all the resources that are dedicated to the team have to be sufficient and have to be used entirely in order to meet the goal. If the team is meeting the goal very easily and they don't need the resources that they have, let's say there is not enough work for all the people who are assigned to that team or they cannot spend their budget, that means that this team is either having a very low goal and their OKR is not correct, or they are maybe hoarding resources or they're not pushing themselves so much. When it comes to the key results, they have to be measurable. They should not be activities, they have to be outcomes. So let's say if your outcome is X% adoption of certain product in the market, then it's not, the key result should not be conducting meetings with clients. Anything that's an action means that this is not a key result. The outcome has to be measurable and it has to be possible to hold people accountable for its execution. So having spreadsheets, having some kind of documentation which is showing whether this key result is achieved or not. So yeah, this is in a nutshell about the book. There's a lot of interesting examples, and at the back of the book you have also a playbook from Google, which is shared with Google's permission, which explains exactly how you should set up OKRs. So pretty much having this book is like having a crash course on how to do it. And by reading it, let's say even after reading only the playbook at the end or the summary, you will be able to effectively introduce OKRs in your organization, in your life, in your work. I find OKRs really great, and I'm considering actually doing my own personal OKRs, let's say for my own goals, not only for my work at Google. And yeah, if you have any more questions or want to see more videos about how Google works, happy to do so. Let me know in the comments below. I'll be back with a new video next week. And until then, I wish you success and hope to see you soon.